You are not worthy to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not come to the wedding. That's right. I hate that my sister-in-law is so ugly. I don't even want to see your face. On the wedding day. I am currently being bombarded with such verbal abuse by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. But I am not stupid enough to give in to such things. I'll give them a surprise they'll never forget. My name is Ashley. Just the other day, my boyfriend Jeff proposed to me. And we decided to get married. We met at a mixer, felt a connection, and quickly started dating. After a year of dating, everything progressed smoothly. Is it really okay for things to go this well? Just as I was basking in this happiness, we hit a major obstacle during our marriage introduction. The visit to my parents went smoothly, and they really liked my kind husband. However, the problem was on my husband's family's side. When I greeted them with "nice to meet you" at his house, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law reacted beyond my wildest imagination. "Jeff, are you really going to marry this girl?" "That's right. She seems like she's pretending to be something she's not. I can't accept her." "Well, I don't intend to. You're trying to take Jeff from our family, aren't you? It's obvious what you're up to. Are you the type who enjoys tearing families apart?" Oh, there are such women. Despite the confusion, I somehow denied it. "No, that's not true. I hope to get along with you too, as well." "Stop it, please. I can't stand a girl who seems as nasty as you." "Me neither. I absolutely can't stand the thought of you becoming part of our family. How could you?" Then, my husband, who had been listening to the conversation, yelled at the two of them, "Enough already. Mom, Linda, what are you talking about? I chose Ashley. We're about to be happy together, why would you say such things?" "But, Linda, you hate this girl too, right?" "Of course I do." "Jeff, can't you find someone better?" "I want Ashley." "No matter what you two say, I'm going to marry Ashley. I've already decided. Please support us as a family." Taking advantage of Jeff's statement, my father-in-law also chimed in. "Both of you are being childish." Perhaps moved by my husband's earnestness, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law finally quieted down. They still looked unsatisfied until the end. But with the persuasion of my husband and father-in-law, we somehow received their approval for the marriage. Even after that, interactions with my in-laws increased, but every time we met, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law started to harass me. Today, we have a dinner at my in-laws. But I am not welcomed there. As I headed to the kitchen to help with the meal preparations, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law immediately started insulting me. Oh my. I still can't believe this girl is becoming Jeff's wife. Really though. She's not impressive at all, and she's ugly too. What? We're just stating the facts. You're shamelessly trying to become part of our family. That's right. You're not worthy to be Jeff's wife. Why don't you just break up and disappear? Please don't say such things. I truly love Jeff. Stop it, please. It's disgusting. Jeff is unfortunate to be loved by you. Know your place. In this manner, they would complain when my husband or father-in-law weren't around. It wasn't just verbal abuse. They would intentionally bump into me or step on my feet. A series of small harassments continued. Among them, the harassment regarding the wedding was particularly bad. I would regularly receive calls from my mother-in-law. "Ashley, when is the next wedding meeting?" "Well, As I've said before, Jeff and I are thinking it through together. So please don't worry. Shut up. Jeff told me to come along. Is that true? Jeff hasn't said a word about it. Just shut up. Are you saying I'm lying? Of course, my husband hadn't invited the two of them to any meetings. After that, my mother-in-law kept persistently calling and emailing. And even showed up at our apartment. Even when trying on dresses, although I am the bride. They came to the shop and complained. Such a luxurious dress doesn't suit you, Ashley. That's true. It would be fine if she were as beautiful as me. But since Ashley is ugly, she's completely overshadowed by the dress. But Jeff and I both like this one the most. Are you talking back? Can't you listen to your mother-in-law's advice? That's right. If you want to be recognized as family, you should just listen to what we say, right? Well, but look, go for that much simpler one. Your face isn't striking, so that's enough for you. Exactly. Just so you know, I won't forgive you if you wear a dress more luxurious than the one I had at my wedding. Even during the wedding preparations, they continuously insulted me. My preferences were completely disregarded, and the dress was almost forcibly decided for me. I consulted my husband and asked him to speak to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but they didn't listen at all. In fact, their behavior towards me only got worse. My husband and I were exhausted from dealing with them, who were impossible to reason with. One day, perhaps sensing how troubled I was by the harassment, my husband took me out for a walk. As we walked slowly, he spoke with concern. Ashley, I'm sorry. No matter what I say, both Mom and Linda won't listen. It's okay. Things might calm down a bit after the wedding. Even if it's only until then, it must be hard for you, Ashley? It's really okay. I also want to be recognized as a part of the family. Then, my husband stopped, turned to face me directly. I'm thinking of cutting ties with Mom and Linda. What? Why? I don't want to make you suffer anymore. So, wait a minute. It's really okay. Besides, we still have the wedding, right? But how about this? Let's think about whether to really cut ties after the wedding is over. That's fine, right? Is that okay with you, Ashley? I'm sure your mother and sister will understand. If it's still too hard, we'll think about it together then? Okay, I'll respect your wishes, Ashley. The fact that my husband gave me the option to cut ties strangely lightened my heart. As we continued walking, he stopped again. What's wrong? When I asked, my husband pointed in a certain direction. When I looked that way, I saw my sister-in-law in a cafe. She was intertwining her fingers with a man who wasn't her husband, chatting intimately. Seeing that, my husband immediately muttered, "That's disgusting." Hey Jeff, is that possibly? Yeah, it's definitely something shady. She keeps telling you that you are not suitable as a wife, but look who's talking. This is definitely bad. Then, as if struck by an idea, my husband exclaimed, "That's it." He took out his smartphone, grinning as he took photos of my sister-in-law's affair. All right. Now I have proof. Ashley, I have a good idea. My husband then told me about a plan. Proof of the affair alone isn't enough. This plan needs your cooperation as well. So please bear with it just a little longer, okay? Jeff, are you serious about this? Of course. It will be the best surprise, huh? But if we do that, don't worry, I'm ready for this. Thus, our revenge drama began. On the wedding day, after finishing my makeup and getting dressed, I was waiting alone in the dressing room when my mother-in-law and sister-in-law barged in without knocking. As soon as they saw me in my bridal attire, they burst out laughing mockingly. "Whatever you wear, you still look plain." "Really? Excuse me, but could you please wait outside?" "What? Still being cheeky to the very end. We came all this way just to see that face of yours. Really, that plain dress just cancels out the plainness of your face. Did you come here just to say that?" Normally, I'd quietly take whatever they said, but not today. Perhaps my attitude didn't sit well with them, as they began yelling furiously. "What's with that look? Are you trying to say we're the bad ones? How dare you become Jeff's wife? I will never accept it. Is that all you want to say? Basically, you are not suitable to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not attend the ceremony today." That's right. I hate having such an ugly sister-in-law. I don't even want to see your face. When they said that with their face flushed, I declared, "I got it. With pleasure." Huh? So, I shouldn't attend the ceremony, right? Well, you're the bride. Do you understand what you're saying? At my sister-in-law's words, I smiled and nodded. "Just as you said, I won't attend the ceremony today." "Oh, you all should head over quickly? The star of the show, Jeff, is waiting." With a broad smile, I said this, and they looked shocked and quickly left. Of course, this was all part of the plan. I had no intention of giving up on my own wedding. It was a strategy Jeff came up with, but it seemed to be working better than expected. After being messed with for so long, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. My heart was pounding with excitement over the great surprise we had thought up. The ceremony began, and first, the groom, my husband, made his entrance. I changed into casual clothes and took on the role of managing the video, so I wouldn't be noticed. My husband, microphone in hand, addressed the attendees. "Well, thank you all for gathering here today for us. However, unfortunately, we will have to cancel today's ceremony." At those words, the venue buzzed with surprise. Not only the other guests, but also my in-laws and sister-in-law's family were all stunned. As if to calm the venue, my husband continued, "We would like to disperse now, but since you've all come, we would like to show a surprise movie instead. Please enjoy your viewing." At my husband's signal, I pressed the play button on the video. The edited video began to play on the screen provided. First, there was audio of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's abusive language. We added subtitles to their abusive words and edited it for clarity. Basically, "You are not suitable to be our daughter-in-law. Please do not attend the ceremony today." That's right. I hate having such an ugly sister-in-law. I don't even want to see your face. The guests all grinned as they listened to the recorded abusive shouts from my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, glancing over at the family seats. Whether out of anger or shame, my husband's family was shaking with red faces. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, surprised, could only gape and stare at the video. Thanks to all the provocation in the dressing room, we were able to record some prime abusive shouts. As I savored their expressions, I played the next video. What flowed next was the footage of my sister-in-law's affair. At that moment, my sister-in-law screamed and shuddered. Whispers started to be heard from the venue. "Hey, isn't this bad? To think she harassed the bride and then cheated, that's disgusting. Look at the family seats. It's totally like a wake." Perhaps his patience finally snapped when the video ended. My father-in-law raised his voice in anger. Of course, not at my husband or me, but at the mother-in-law and sister-in-law. You too, what have you done to Ashley? Ever since she came to our house to greet us, you haven't reflected at all, have you? It's not like that, dear. Believe me, Dad. It was that woman's fault. Silence. To treat someone Jeff chose like that. You two are the worst as human beings. Don't be angry, please. It's all because that woman was so cheeky. Yeah, right. Mom and I. We were just trying to train her to be a suitable wife for our family. Then, the sister-in-law's husband pointed at her and said, "Suitable wife? How dare you say that? Huh? After cheating on me secretly, you still dare talk big like this? How could you betray me? It's not like that. That person isn't like that." What? You were intertwining fingers looking cozy, and now this? Stop joking around to this extent. After such damning videos, their excuses held no weight. The anger of the father-in-law and sister-in-law's husband didn't subside, and the two women could only shrink away. Then, I appeared in casual clothes at just the right moment, and the mother-in-law and sister-in-law directed their anger towards me. You. What have you done? I thought you were just obeying the order not to attend the ceremony. So this was your plan. Well, I'm sorry for doing it this way. But I had no other choice. Shut up. You fool. The worst woman. That's why I hated a woman like you. You damn. I had intended to keep things as peaceful as possible. But their words completely removed any restraint I had. Taking a deep breath, I let them have it. The worst. Damn. That's my line. Do you have any idea how much you've harassed me? Put yourself in my shoes, being harassed for such petty reasons. You are the lowest of mother and daughter. With a volume I had never used before. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were taken aback. Ignoring them, I delivered the final blow. I don't need to be acknowledged by you as family. I refuse it. All I love is Jeff. If you feel that way, I will mercilessly cut you off too. I don't care what happens to you. Never involve yourselves with me again. When I was panting after saying that, my husband said, "Let's go," and took my hand. As expected, the wedding ended disastrously. The mother-in-law and sister-in-law were scorned by the attendees and became the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. Afterwards, both the mother-in-law and sister-in-law were divorced by their spouses and apparently kicked out of their homes. They tried to seek help from friends and relatives, but by then their misdeeds were well known, and no one was willing to extend a hand. Both being housewives without money, they used up their savings to rent an apartment. Though once close, they now spend their days bickering constantly. It's all because Mom said to drive Ashley out. What are you talking about? You also said you didn't like her, right? That's right, but we didn't have to go that far, did we? What? It's also because of your affair. Shut up, just shut up. I hate you, Mom. Truly, what a deplorable mother and daughter. Meanwhile, my husband and I moved close to my parents' house. We occasionally meet with the father-in-law, but we've cut ties with the mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and finally freed ourselves from stress. Now, we can spend our days happily without any worries.
I stared at the phone in my hand, my knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. Ethan's voice echoed in my ears, but I couldn't make sense of his words. My husband of 15 years, the father of our daughter, was telling me something that shook the very foundation of our life together. "Anna, are you still there?" Ethan's voice crackled through the speaker. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to respond. "Yes, I'm here. I can't believe what you're saying. Elise is pregnant?" "Yes, she is, and she needs our support now more than ever." I closed my eyes, trying to process this information. Elise, Ethan's younger sister, had always been a free spirit, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Who's the father?" I asked, dreading the answer. There was a pause on the other end of the line. She doesn't want to say, but that's not important right now. What matters is that we're there for her." I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "Ethan, how can you say that's not important? She's married, for heaven's sake. What about Robert?" "Robert left her," Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. "He couldn't handle it. But I won't abandon my sister, Anna. I can't." The knot in my stomach tightened. There was something in Ethan's voice, a fierce protectiveness that went beyond brotherly concern. It made me uneasy. "When are you coming home?" I asked, glancing at the clock. It was almost time to pick up Mia from school. "I don't know," Ethan replied. "Elise needs me here. I might stay a few days." I bit back a sharp retort. "Ethan, we need you too. Mia has her dance recital this weekend, remember?" There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Anna. I'll try to make it, but I can't promise anything. Elise is in a delicate state right now." I felt a surge of anger and hurt. "And what about your daughter? Isn't she important too?" "Of course she is," Ethan snapped. "But this is different. Elise is all alone." "She has you," I muttered, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Anna, please try to understand. I'll be home as soon as I can." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, a mixture of emotions swirling inside me. Concern for Elise, anger at Ethan, and a growing sense of unease about the whole situation. The sound of the front door opening startled me out of my thoughts. "Mom? I'm home!" Mia's cheerful voice called out. I quickly composed myself, pushing my worries aside. "In the kitchen, sweetie?" Mia bounced in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 12, she was the spitting image of Ethan, with his dark hair and bright blue eyes. "Where's Dad?" she asked, looking around. I forced a smile. "He had to go help Aunt Elise with something. He'll be home in a few days." Mia's face fell. "But my recital." "I know, honey," I said, pulling her into a hug. "He'll try his best to make it." As I held my daughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our family. Ethan's reaction to Elise's pregnancy, his eagerness to drop everything for her, it all felt wrong somehow. I pulled back, looking into Mia's eyes. "How about we practice your routine one more time before dinner?" Mia's face lit up. "Really? You have time?" "For you? Always," I said, meaning every word. As we moved to the living room, clearing space for Mia to dance, I pushed my worries to the back of my mind. But they lingered there, a shadow over what should have been a normal evening at home. Whatever was going on with Ethan and Elise, I had a sinking feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. And not for the better. The days after Ethan's phone call blurred together in a haze of forced normalcy and mounting tension. I tried to keep things steady for Mia's sake, but every time my phone buzzed, I felt my stomach clench. It was a week before Ethan finally came home. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door open. "Daddy!" Mia's excited shriek echoed through the house. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been rehearsing all week. But when I walked into the living room, the words died in my throat. Ethan looked different. Haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, but there was an unsettling intensity in his gaze as he hugged Mia. "Hey, sweetie," he said, his voice rough. "I missed you." "I missed you too, Dad," Mia replied, beaming. "Did you see my recital video? Mom recorded it for you." A flicker of guilt crossed Ethan's face. "I'm sorry I missed it, honey. I'll watch it soon, I promise." I cleared my throat. "Mia, why don't you go finish your homework? I need to talk to your father." Once Mia was upstairs, I turned to Ethan. "How's Elise?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's managing. The pregnancy's been hard on her." "And how are you managing?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been gone for a week, Ethan. You missed your daughter's recital. You've barely called." "I told you Elise needed me," he snapped. "She's going through a difficult time." "And we're not?" I shot back. Do you have any idea how hard it's been trying to explain to Mia why her father wasn't here? Ethan's face softened. I'm sorry, Anna. I know it's been tough, but Elise, she's all alone. She needs support. What about Robert? I asked. Has he really just abandoned her and their unborn child? A strange look passed over Ethan's face. Robert's out of the picture. For good. Something in his tone made me pause. Ethan, what aren't you telling me? He looked away. Nothing. It's complicated, that's all. I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. No, there's more to this. I can tell what's really going on with Elise. Ethan's jaw clenched. Drop it, Anna. It's family business. I am your family, I exclaimed, my voice rising. Or have you forgotten that? Of course not, he said, but his eyes slid away from mine. Look, I'm tired. Can we talk about this later? Before I could respond, Mia's voice called down from upstairs. Mom? Dad? Is everything okay? I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to steady. Everything's fine, sweetie. Just grown-up talk. Ethan used the interruption to retreat. I'm going to take a shower, he muttered, heading for the stairs. I watched him go, a cold feeling settling in my chest. This wasn't just about Elise's pregnancy. There was something more, something Ethan wasn't telling me. That night, as we lay in bed, the silence between us felt like a chasm. I turned to face Ethan's back, watching the rise and fall of his breathing. Ethan, I whispered, what's happening to us? He didn't respond for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he murmured. I don't know, Anna. I just don't know. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. The man lying next to me suddenly felt like a stranger. The life we'd built together, the love we'd shared, it all seemed to be slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I drifted off into an uneasy sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. Whatever was going on with Elise, it was tearing my family apart, and I was determined to find out why, no matter the cost. The shrill cry of a newborn pierced the air as I stood in the hospital corridor, my hands clenched at my sides. Ethan burst out of the delivery room, his face flushed with excitement. It's a boy, he exclaimed, grabbing my shoulders. Owen's here, Anna. He's perfect. I forced a smile, trying to match his enthusiasm. That's wonderful, Ethan. How's Elise? She's doing great, he said, his eyes shining. Come on, you have to see him. As we entered the room, I saw Elise cradling a tiny bundle. She looked up, her face glowing despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. Anna, meet your nephew. I approached the bed, peering down at the infant. My heart softened at the sight of his scrunched-up face. He's beautiful, Elise, I said softly. Ethan moved to the other side of the bed, his hand resting on Elise's shoulder. You did amazing, sis, he murmured. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. The tenderness in Ethan's eyes as he gazed at Elise and Owen sent a chill down my spine. Where's Mia? Elise asked, breaking the moment. She's with my parents, I replied. We thought it best not to bring her to the hospital. Ethan frowned. She should be here to meet her cousin. It's late, Ethan, I said, trying to keep my voice even. She has school tomorrow. He waved dismissively. This is more important. I'll go pick her up. No, I said firmly. She needs her sleep. We can bring her tomorrow. Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. But before he could respond, a nurse entered to check on Elise and Owen. As weeks passed, Ethan's devotion to Elise and Owen only intensified. He was constantly at their house, helping with feedings, diaper changes, and midnight wake-ups. Meanwhile, our own home life suffered. One evening, I found Mia sitting alone at the dinner table, pushing food around her plate. Sweetie, what's wrong? I asked, sitting beside her. She looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. Why doesn't Dad want to be with us anymore? My heart shattered. I pulled her into a tight hug. Oh, honey, your dad loves us very much. He's trying to help Aunt Elise right now. But why does he have to help her all the time? Mia sniffled. Can't someone else do it? I had no answer for her. The truth was, I'd been asking myself the same question. Later that night, I confronted Ethan as he came home late again. This has to stop, Ethan, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. Mia thinks you don't want to be with us anymore? Ethan's face hardened. That's ridiculous. Of course I want to be with you, but Elise needs me right now. And we don't, I shot back. When was the last time you had dinner with us? Or helped Mia with her homework? I'm doing the best I can, Anna, he snapped. Elise is a single mother. She needs support. And what about your own family? I asked, my voice rising. We need you too, Ethan. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. You don't understand. Owen, he needs a father figure. I stared at him, a cold realization settling in my gut. And you think that should be you? Ethan's silence was deafening. Ethan, I said slowly, what exactly is your relationship with Elise? His head snapped up, eyes blazing. What are you implying? I don't know, I said, my voice shaking. But something isn't right here. The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us, it's not normal, Ethan. You're being paranoid, he spat. Elise is my sister, Owen is my nephew, that's all. But as he stormed out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Something dark and twisted that threatened to tear our family apart. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Whatever was going on between Ethan and Elise, one thing was clear. I needed to protect Mia. And to do that, I might have to be prepared to fight for my family in ways I never imagined. I stared at the elaborate birthday cake on the kitchen counter, the number 13 spelled out in pink frosting. Mia's excitement had been building for weeks, and I'd promised her the best birthday party ever. But as I glanced at the clock, my heart sank. Ethan was late. Again. The doorbell rang, and I plastered on a smile as I went to greet Mia's friends. Soon the house was filled with the chatter and laughter of teenage girls. Mia kept glancing at the door, her smile faltering each time it wasn't her father walking through. Mom, she whispered during a lull in the party games. Where's Dad? I squeezed her shoulder. I'm sure he's on his way, sweetie. You know how traffic can be. But as the hours ticked by, my reassurances rang hollow. When it was time to cut the cake, Mia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Let's wait just a few more minutes, she pleaded. I nodded, my own anger building. I stepped into the hallway and dialed Ethan's number for the 10th time. To my surprise, he picked up. Anna, I can't talk right now, he said, his voice hushed and urgent. Ethan, where are you? I hissed. Mia's party started hours ago. I know. I'm sorry. There was an emergency with Owen. An emergency? I interrupted. Is he okay? There was a pause. He's fine now. Just a little fever. But Elise was panicking and I had to. Had to what, Ethan? I snapped. Miss your daughter's 13th birthday for a fever? Couldn't Elise handle it on her own? You don't understand, he said, frustration evident in his voice. Elise needs me. And Mia doesn't. I was nearly shouting now. Get your priorities straight, Ethan. Your daughter is waiting for you. I hung up before he could respond, taking a deep breath to compose myself before returning to the party. Mia's face fell when she saw me return alone. He's not coming, is he? I pulled her into a hug, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But we're not going to let that ruin your day, okay? Let's cut that cake. The party continued, but the joy had been sucked out of it. As the last guest left, Mia retreated to her room without a word. I was clearing up when Ethan finally came home, looking haggard and guilty. Where's Mia? He asked, his eyes darting around the room. In her room, I said coldly. Crying, probably. Nice of you to show up. Ethan's face crumpled. Anna, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Save it, I cut him off. I'm not the one you need to apologize to. He nodded and headed upstairs. I followed, lingering in the hallway as he knocked on Mia's door. Mia? Sweetheart, can I come in? There was no response. Ethan opened the door slowly and I heard Mia's muffled sobs. Oh, honey, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Why weren't you here? Mia's voice was small and hurt. Samna, don't you care about me anymore? Of course I do, Ethan exclaimed. You're my little girl. I love you more than anything. Then why are you always with Aunt Elise and Owen? Mia asked. Don't we matter anymore? There was a long pause. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was strained. It's complicated, sweetheart. Aunt Elise and Owen, they need me right now. And we don't. Mia's voice rose. I needed you today, Dad, and you weren't here. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the room, my eyes locking with Ethan's. I think you should go, I said quietly. Ethan looked between Mia and me, desperation in his eyes. Anna, please. No, I said firmly. You've made your choice, Ethan. Now you need to live with it. As Ethan left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I sat on the bed and pulled Mia close. She clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. In that moment, I knew things would never be the same. The life we'd built was crumbling, and I had to decide how to protect what mattered most, my daughter. The tension in our house had become unbearable since Mia's birthday disaster. Ethan was spending more time than ever at Elise's, and when he was home, the silence between us was deafening. I'd reached my breaking point. One evening, as Ethan was heading out yet again, I blocked the door. "We need to talk," I said firmly. He sighed, checking his watch. "Can it wait? Elise is expecting me." "No, it can't," I snapped. "Sit down, Ethan. Now." Reluctantly, he followed me to the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been avoiding for months. "What's really going on between you and Elise?" I asked bluntly. Ethan's face hardened. "We've been through this, Anna. She's my sister. I'm helping her with Owen." "It's more than that," I pressed. "The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us, it's not normal, Ethan." He stood up abruptly. "You're being ridiculous. Is this why you stopped me to accuse me of what exactly?" I met his gaze unflinchingly. "I don't know. You tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in love with your sister." The color drained from Ethan's face. For a moment, he looked like I'd slapped him. Then his expression twisted into something I'd never seen before. A mix of anger, guilt, and relief. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he hissed. "Then explain it to me," I shouted, my composure finally cracking. "Because I'm losing my husband, Mia's losing her father, and I don't understand why." Ethan paced the room, running his hands through his hair. "It's complicated, Anna. Elise and we have a bond you couldn't possibly understand." "Try me," I said, my voice cold. He stopped, turning to face me. "Elise and we've always been close. Closer than most siblings. When she got pregnant, when Robert left her, I couldn't abandon her. I couldn't let her face that alone." "But Owen isn't just your nephew, is he?" I whispered, the horrible realization dawning on me. Ethan's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I felt the room spin, nausea rising in my throat. "How long?" I managed to choke out. "Anna, please." "How long, Ethan?" I demanded. He slumped onto the couch, defeated. "Years. Since we were teenagers. It just happened." I stumbled back, gripping the wall for support. "And Owen?" Ethan nodded, unable to meet my eyes. The betrayal, the lies, the years of deception, it all came crashing down on me. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a world that no longer made sense. "Does Mia know?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "God, no," Ethan said quickly. "We never wanted to hurt her, or you. We tried to end it so many times, but you couldn't," I finished for him. "And now there's a child." Ethan looked up, his eyes pleading. "I know it's wrong, I know it's messed up, but I love them, Anna. I can't abandon them now." In that moment, looking at the man I thought I knew, I felt something inside me harden. The shock and pain gave way to a cold, clear purpose. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of this house," I repeated, my voice gaining strength. "Pack your things and leave." "Anna, please, we can work this out." "There's nothing to work out," I cut him off. "You made your choice a long time ago, Ethan. Now I'm making mine." As Ethan gathered his belongings, moving like a man in a daze, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing. I knew the road ahead would be hard. Explaining this to Mia, dealing with the inevitable fallout when the truth came out, it would be a nightmare. But as I heard the front door close behind Ethan for the last time, I felt a strange sense of calm. The life I thought I had was over, but in its place, I saw a chance for something new. A life built on truth, not lies. A life where I could protect Mia from the twisted web her father had woven. It wouldn't be easy, but as I climbed the stairs to wake Mia and begin the hardest conversation of our lives, I knew one thing for certain. We would survive this. We had to. The invitation to Owen's first birthday party sat on our kitchen counter like a ticking time bomb. Mia eyed it warily, her young face etched with a wariness no 13-year-old should possess. "Do we have to go, Mom?" she asked, her voice small. I sighed, pulling her close. "I think we should, sweetie. He's still your cousin." The truth was, I dreaded this party as much as Mia did. But after months of separation and tense co-parenting arrangements, I felt we needed to make an appearance, if only to show Ethan we were moving on. As we pulled up to Elise's house, my stomach churned. Colorful balloons decorated the front yard, a cheerful facade that felt like a mockery of the turmoil beneath. Ethan greeted us at the door, his smile strained. "Anna, Mia, I'm glad you came." Mia brushed past him without a word, heading straight for a group of cousins in the backyard. I followed Ethan inside, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The house was filled with family members, many of whom shot curious glances our way. I plastered on a smile, determined to get through this for Mia's sake. Elise approached, Owen balanced on her hip. "Anna, thank you for coming," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "It means so much to us." I nodded stiffly, unable to form words. The sight of Owen, with his familiar blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, made my chest tighten. As the party progressed, I kept a watchful eye on Mia. She seemed to be holding up well, laughing with her cousins and pointedly avoiding Ethan and Elise. It wasn't until the cake-cutting ceremony that things took a turn. Ethan stood up, tapping his glass for attention. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced, his eyes shining. "To Owen, our beautiful boy, and to family, the bonds that tie us together no matter what." His gaze lingered on Elise, and I saw her blush. My stomach turned. "Owen's arrival has made me realize what truly matters," Ethan continued. "Family is everything, and I have a vision for our future, a future where our children carry on our legacy." I frowned, a sense of unease growing. "In fact," Ethan said, his voice filled with misplaced pride, "I've already started planning for Owen and Mia's future together. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see them united, keeping our family's bonds strong?" The room fell silent. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications of his words sank in. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Ethan turned to me, his eyes bright with a fervor I didn't recognize. "Think about it, Owen. Cousins united in marriage. It's perfect. Our family's legacy preserved." I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. "Have you lost your mind?" I hissed. "Mia is 13. Owen is a baby. And they're cousins. It's not unheard of." Ethan argued, oblivious to the horrified looks around him. "In many cultures—" "Stop it," I shouted. "Just stop. This is sick, Ethan. You're sick." I scanned the room for Mia, panic rising when I couldn't see her. Then I heard a sob from the hallway. I rushed out to find Mia curled up on the floor, her body shaking. "Oh, baby," I whispered, gathering her in my arms. "I'm so sorry. We're leaving now." Ethan appeared in the doorway. "Anna, wait, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." I spat, helping Mia to her feet. "Stay away from us, Ethan. I mean it." As we hurried to the car, Mia clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. "Mom," she whimpered, "what's wrong with Dad?" I held her tighter, my mind racing. How could I protect her from this? How had things gone so terribly wrong? Driving away from Elise's house, I made a decision. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about protecting Mia from a toxic, twisted family dynamic that threatened to destroy her. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Mia, my resolve hardening. "Pack a bag, sweetheart. We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's for a while." Mia nodded, relief flooding her tear-stained face. As she ran inside, I sat in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I knew the road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to fight. For Mia, for our future, for the family we deserved. The drive to my parents' house was a blur of streetlights and Mia's muffled sobs. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, my mind racing with the enormity of what had just happened. As we pulled into the driveway, my mother rushed out, her face etched with concern. "Anna, what's wrong? Is Mia okay?" I shook my head, unable to form words. We stumbled inside, Mia clinging to me like a lifeline. "It's Ethan," I finally managed to choke out. He's lost his mind." Over cups of strong tea, with Mia safely tucked away in the guest room, I poured out the whole sordid story to my parents. Their faces morphed from shock to horror to outrage. "You can't go back there," my father said firmly. "You and Mia will stay here as long as you need." I nodded gratefully, feeling a small measure of relief, but I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, as Mia slept, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Ethan. "Anna, please, let me explain. You're overreacting. Think of Mia. We can work this out. Come home." I deleted each one, my resolve strengthening with every plea. But then came a message that made my blood run cold. "If you don't bring Mia home, I'll file for full custody. Don't test me, Anna." My hands shook as I showed the message to my parents. "He can't do that, can he?" I whispered. My father's face hardened. "We won't let him. I'm calling our lawyer right now." The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations and hushed conversations. Mia wandered through the house like a ghost, her eyes haunted. I tried to shield her from the worst of it, but I knew she sensed the tension. On the fourth day, as I was helping my mother with dinner, the The doorbell rang. My heart stopped when I saw Ethan standing there, his eyes wild. "Where's Mia?" he demanded, trying to push past me. I stood my ground. "You need to leave, Ethan. Now. She's my daughter," he shouted. "You can't keep her from me." Mia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. "Dad?" Ethan's expression softened. "Mia, sweetheart, come on, we're going home." I moved to block the stairs. "She's not going anywhere with you." Ethan's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't do this, Anna. You can't take my family away from me. Let go of her." My father's voice boomed as he appeared from the kitchen, phone in hand. "The police are on their way, Ethan. Leave now, or you'll be arrested." For a moment I thought Ethan might actually hit my father, but then, as if deflating, he released my arm and stumbled back. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I'll see you in court." As he stormed off, I collapsed against the wall, my legs giving out. Mia rushed down the stairs, throwing herself into my arms. "Mom," she sobbed, "I'm scared." I held her tight, my own tears falling. "I know, baby. I am too, but we're going to be okay. I promise. I promise." That night, as Mia finally slept, curled up next to me in the guest room bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The life I'd known was gone, shattered beyond repair. The man I'd loved, the father of my child, had become a stranger, a threat. I knew the road ahead would be hard. A custody battle, the inevitable gossip and judgment from those who didn't know the whole story, the challenge of rebuilding our lives from scratch. But as I looked at Mia's peaceful face, I felt a fierce determination well up inside me. No matter what it took, no matter how hard I had to fight, I would protect my daughter. I would give her the safe, loving home she deserved, even if it meant facing down Ethan and his twisted family alone. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, I made a silent vow. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about reclaiming our lives, our happiness, our future. And I was ready for the fight. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting for the judge to return with her decision. Mia sat beside me, her face pale but determined. Across the aisle, Ethan glared, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. The past 6 months had been a nightmare of legal battles, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. But through it all, Mia and I had grown stronger, our bond unbreakable in the face of adversity. The judge entered, her face unreadable. "In the matter of custody for Mia Stewart, I've reached a decision." I held my breath, feeling Mia's hand slip into mine. "Full custody is granted to Anna Stewart, with supervised visitation for Ethan Stewart, for pending completion of mandatory counseling and evaluation." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Mia threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. As we left the courtroom, Ethan approached, his face a mask of anger and desperation. "This isn't over, Anna. I'll appeal." "No, Ethan." I cut him off, my voice steady. "It is over. For Mia's sake, get help. Be the father she deserves." With that, we walked away, leaving behind the shattered remains of our old life. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. We moved into a small apartment, just Mia and me. I found a job at a local community center helping families in crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me, but the work felt right, like I was finally where I was meant to be. Mia thrived in her new school, making friends and rediscovering her love for art. Slowly, the haunted look left her eyes, replaced by a spark of joy and hope. One evening, as we sat on our tiny balcony watching the sunset, Mia turned to me. "Mom, are you happy?" I looked at her, really looked at the strong, resilient young woman she was becoming, and felt a surge of pride and love. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. Are you?" She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I am. I miss Dad sometimes, but I'm glad we're here. Just us." I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Me too, baby. Me too." As the years passed, our little family of 2 grew stronger. Ethan eventually completed his counseling and began supervised visits with Mia. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Elise and Owen faded into the background, a painful chapter closed. On Mia's 18th birthday, we threw a small party in our apartment. As I watched her blow out the candles, surrounded by friends and laughter, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Later that night, as we cleaned up, Mia hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything, for being strong enough for both of us." Tears pricked my eyes as I held her close. "Oh, Mia, you were the strong one. You gave me the courage to fight." As she pulled away, wiping her eyes, she grinned. We make a pretty good team, huh? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. The best. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the fear, the heartbreak, it had all led to this moment of quiet joy. I'd lost the life I thought I wanted, but I'd gained something far more precious, a true understanding of my own strength and an unbreakable bond with my daughter. I thought of the frightened, confused woman I'd been all those years ago, receiving that fateful phone call from Ethan. If I could go back, I'd tell her, "You're stronger than you know. Trust yourself. Fight for what matters. The road ahead is hard, but the destination is worth every step." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We'd weathered the storm, Mia and I. We'd faced the darkness and emerged into the light, scarred but unbroken. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together, with love, courage, and the unshakable bond between a mother and daughter. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The day my world turned upside down began like any other. I was in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, when my phone rang. Glancing at the screen, I saw Dr. Jennings' name flash. My heart sank. "Elaine Morrison," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mrs. Morrison, it's about your father, George. I'm sorry to say it's cancer, terminal. He might have 6 months, perhaps less." Dr. Jennings' voice was a blend of professionalism and sympathy. The news hit me like a physical blow. My father, the man who raised me single-handedly after Mom passed, was now facing his final chapter. Alone, the thought was unbearable. I found Ethan in his study, surrounded by piles of paperwork. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about Dad. He's dying." Ethan looked up, his expression barely changing. "And what do you expect me to do about it?" The coldness in his voice stung, but I pushed on. "I want him to move in with us. He shouldn't be alone now, and we have plenty of space." Ethan scoffed, a sound that echoed off the walls of the study. "Here, live with us? Elaine, be reasonable. This house is for us, not for charity cases. If you're so desperate, let him stay in the garden shed. But that's as far as I go." The garden shed. The words echoed in my mind, a cruel and mocking suggestion. How had my life come to this? Marrying Ethan, I had hoped for love and companionship, but all I found was a life of silent transactions and cold indifference. That night, as I lay in our bed, Ethan's snoring filling the room, I couldn't help but think back to the days of my youth, days filled with laughter and dreams, days when the future seemed bright and full of possibilities. And now, here I was, contemplating setting up a home for my dying father in a garden shed, because my husband, the man who vowed to stand by me, had no room for compassion in his heart. The irony of it all was not lost on me. Ethan, who always preached about family values, was now turning his back on the most basic human decency. The realization was bitter, and it kept me awake long into the night. As dawn broke, a determination stirred within me. If Ethan wouldn't help, I would do it myself. I would make the garden shed a home for my father, a place where he could spend his final days surrounded by love and care, even if it was just from me. I rose from the bed, my mind made up. It was time to take a stand, for my father, and perhaps for myself too. As I embarked on the task of transforming the garden shed into a livable space for my father, memories of the past swirled through my mind, each one a sharp contrast to my current life. I remembered the days of my youth in our small but happy home, where laughter was our constant companion. My father, George, was a beacon of strength and kindness, filling the void left by my mother's early passing. He taught me the value of hard work and the joy of simple living. But our simple life took an unexpected turn when I was 19. The Daltons, a prominent and influential family in our town, appeared at our doorstep with a proposal that felt more like a decree. My father had accumulated a debt, a secret he had kept hidden, fueled by his descent into gambling after Mom's death. The Daltons offered a solution: marry their son Ethan, and the debt would be forgiven. The choice was presented as an opportunity, but it was a demand. My dreams, my aspirations, and my budding relationship with Michael, the boy next door who held my heart, were all swept away in that moment. Ethan Dalton, the man who now lay beside me night after night, indifferent to my existence, was a stranger on our wedding day. Our marriage was a transaction, devoid of love or warmth, a sacrifice I made to save my father from ruin. Over the years, I had learned to play the role of Ethan's wife, managing our home and assisting in his business, without compensation or gratitude. My life had become a series of routines, my dreams shelved and forgotten. Yet as I worked on the shed, painting walls and selecting furniture, a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years began to stir within me. This project, though born out of necessity, was mine. It was a tangible connection to the independent and spirited girl I once was, a girl who believed in making a difference. As I stood back to admire my handiwork, the shed no longer seemed like a symbol of Ethan's cruelty, but a testament to my resilience. It was small, but it was filled with the warmth and love that our sprawling mansion so conspicuously lacked. I realized then that this shed was not just for my father. It was a sanctuary for my own weary soul, a place where I could reconnect with the parts of myself that I had lost in the years of my loveless marriage. It was in this small space, amidst the smell of fresh paint and new beginnings, that I made a silent vow. I would be there for my father, just as he had always been there for me, and in doing so, I would find a way back to myself, to the Elaine who dared to dream and love. The transformation of the garden shed into a cozy abode for my father was more than just a physical change. It was a reflection of my inner turmoil. As I worked, my thoughts often drifted to the strained tapestry of my marriage with Ethan. Our relationship, if it could be called that, was a study in silent endurance. Ethan was always more a businessman than a husband. He viewed everything through the lens of profit and loss, including our marriage. The warmth and connection that should have adorned a marital life were conspicuously absent in ours. We were like two parallel lines under one roof, destined never to meet. In the early years, I tried to breach the chasm between us. I attempted to take an interest in his work, to be the wife I thought he wanted, but my efforts were met with indifference or at times with barely concealed irritation. Ethan had no interest in a partner. He wanted an accessory, someone to manage his home and host his business associates. As the years passed, I found myself fading into the background of Ethan's life. I was there, yet invisible, my existence acknowledged only when it served a purpose. The realization was a slow and painful awakening. I was living in a gilded cage, a bird with clipped wings. My father's illness and Ethan's callous reaction to it were the final straws. How could the man I had spent nearly 3 decades with show such disregard for basic human empathy? The realization that my life with Ethan had been devoid of genuine affection hit me with renewed force. But amidst this turmoil, there was a silver lining. My son, Daniel, was the one true joy in my life. Raising him had given me purpose, a reason to smile amidst the coldness of my marriage. Daniel, now a young man studying at university, was everything Ethan was not: kind, compassionate, and full of life. I often wondered what Daniel thought of his father's behavior, of the palpable tension that hung in the air whenever Ethan was home. But Daniel, ever the peacemaker, never voiced his concerns. He was the bridge between two worlds that refused to converge. As I placed the final cushion on the newly installed couch in the shed, a sense of accomplishment washed over me. It was modest, but it was filled with love and care, something that my vast, luxurious home lacked. This small shed had become a symbol of my resilience, a quiet rebellion against the life of silent compliance I had been living. It was a step, however small, towards reclaiming the parts of myself that I had lost in the shadows of my marriage. And as I looked at the shed, now ready to welcome my father, I made a silent promise to myself. I would no longer be a spectator in my own life. It was time to take control, to find my voice again. For my father, for Daniel, and for the Elaine who deserved to be heard. The days following the completion of the shed were a whirlwind of emotion and activity. My father moved in, his frail frame a stark reminder of the precious little time we had left. Despite his condition, his eyes sparkled with gratitude as he settled into his new abode. The small space was filled with love and memories, a sharp contrast to the cold luxury of the main house. During this time, Ethan's true nature became increasingly apparent. His visits to my father were perfunctory, devoid of any genuine concern. His indifference was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was not unexpected. What pained me more was the growing realization that I had allowed myself to be diminished, to become a mere shadow in my own life. One evening, as I was organizing old files in Ethan's study, I stumbled upon documents that laid bare the extent of his deceit. Bank statements, emails, and letters painted a picture of a man who was not just indifferent, but morally corrupt. There were dubious business deals, secret accounts, and, most shockingly, evidence of infidelity. The discovery shook me to my core. The man I had married, the father of my child, was a stranger. His betrayal was not just breach of our marital vows, but a complete disregard for the family we had built together. In that moment, something within me shifted. The years of suppressed anger and disappointment surged to the surface, fueling a newfound resolve. I could no longer be a bystander in my own life story. I started to secretly gather evidence of Ethan's misdeeds. Each document, each piece of evidence was a step towards my liberation. It was not just about seeking justice, it was about reclaiming my dignity, my self-worth. As the days passed, I became more determined. I began to plan my exit from this loveless marriage. My conversations with my father, once filled with shared memories and laughter, now often turned to discussions of the future. "You've always been strong, Elaine," my father would say, his voice weak but his eyes full of love. "You deserve happiness. You and Daniel. Don't let Ethan take that away from you." My father's words were a balm to my troubled soul. In his wisdom and love, I found the strength to envision a life beyond Ethan's shadow. The final push came unexpectedly. One day, as Ethan berated me over some trivial matter, something inside me snapped. His words, once capable of wounding me deeply, now fell on deaf ears. "I'm not your property, Ethan," I said calmly, the clarity in my voice surprising even myself. "I am a person, deserving of respect and love, neither of which you've ever given me." Ethan's response was a mix of shock and anger, but I was beyond caring. I had spent too many years under his thumb, and I would no longer allow him to control my narrative. That night, as I lay in bed, a plan began to form in my mind. I would leave Ethan, but not empty-handed. I would fight for what was rightfully mine and Daniel's. It was not just about financial security. It was about setting things right, about ensuring that Ethan faced the consequences of his actions. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I met with lawyers, gathered evidence, and prepared my case. It was a daunting task, but with each step I felt more empowered, more like the Elaine I had once been. And then, one sunny morning, as I sat in the shed with my father, watching the birds flit about in the garden, I knew it was time. I was ready to face Ethan, ready to end the charade of a marriage that had been nothing but a prison. "I'm going to do it, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to leave Ethan and start a new life. For me, for you, for Daniel." My father smiled. A fragile but genuine smile. "I've always believed in you, Elaine. It's time for you to believe in yourself." With that, I stood up, my resolve firm. It was time to close this chapter of my life and begin anew. Elaine Morrison was no longer a victim of circumstance. She was a woman in control of her destiny. The day I confronted Ethan was a day of reckoning. Armed with my gathered evidence and bolstered by a newfound sense of self-worth, I faced him in what had once been our shared study. The room, once a symbol of our joint life, now felt like a battleground. "Ethan," I began, my voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions within, "this marriage, our life together, it's over. I'm leaving you." His reaction was a mix of disbelief and scorn. "Leave me, Elaine? You have nothing without me. Where will you go? You think you can survive out there on your own?" His words, meant to intimidate, only strengthened my resolve. "I have more than you realize, Ethan. I have evidence of your infidelity, your shady business dealings, and your financial mismanagement. I'm not leaving empty-handed." The look of shock on Ethan's face was, in a way, satisfying. For years, I had been under his thumb, underestimated and undervalued. But now, the tables were turned. Over the following weeks, our life unraveled like a poorly knit sweater. The divorce proceedings were bitter, with Ethan trying to discredit me at every turn. But I stood my ground, backed by irrefutable evidence and a legal team that believed in my cause. As the truth of Ethan's actions came to light, his reputation, both personal and professional, began to crumble. The community we had once been a part of turned its back on him. His business associates distanced themselves, and even his closest friends began to see him for who he truly was. In a twist of fate, it was Ethan who ended up isolated and alone, much like he had made me feel all these years. The empire he had built on lies and deceit was now his prison, a constant reminder of his moral bankruptcy. The final divorce settlement was more than just a financial victory for me. It was a symbol of my liberation. I received a significant portion of our assets, enough to ensure a comfortable life for myself, my father, and Daniel. With the legal battles behind me, I focused on rebuilding my life. I bought a modest but beautiful home, not far from the university where Daniel was studying. It was a fresh start, a place where my father could spend his remaining days surrounded by love and care. The house quickly became a home, filled with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold, impersonal mansion I had left behind. My father's health, while still fragile, seemed to improve in this new environment, buoyed by the positive energy that surrounded him. As for myself, I found a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I took up gardening, something I had always wanted to do, but never had the time for. I also began volunteering at a local charity, finding fulfillment in helping others. The most significant change, however, was within me. I no longer saw myself through Ethan's eyes. I was no longer the timid, compliant wife, but a strong, independent woman who had faced adversity and emerged victorious. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, a sense of contentment washed over me. I had come a long way from the scared young girl who had entered a loveless marriage to save her father. I had fought for my dignity, for my right to happiness, and I had won. My journey was not just about leaving Ethan, it was about finding myself. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I would face them with strength and grace. Elaine Morrison had finally come home.
It's gotten late because work dragged on. I should head home soon. It was late at night and I was walking home quickly. Walking alone on a deserted street at night is dangerous. I need to get home quickly. Just as I was thinking this, a dull pain suddenly struck my back. As I fell, I managed to catch a glimpse of the perpetrator, a woman holding a metal bat and glaring at me. Despite the darkness, her flashy attire was unmistakable. I had been wary of strange men, never expecting to be attacked by a woman. I was shocked. Being Ethan's wife is unforgivable. The one who truly loves Ethan is me. Ethan belongs to me. You should just disappear. While calling out my husband's name, the woman beat me mercilessly with the metal bat. I thought, what does that mean? I wanted to ask her many things. But repeated blows prevented me from even raising my voice. I fell to the ground in pain, my consciousness fading. When I regained consciousness, the woman was gone. And dawn had broken while I lay on the ground. As I stood up, intense pain coursed through my body. Blood dripped onto the ground. Holding my head in pain, my palm came away covered in blood. I realized I was bleeding from the head. I could smell the iron. I tried to call an ambulance with my smartphone. But unfortunately, the battery was dead. I thought, why now of all times? Looking around, I could see the law office where my husband, Ethan, worked. Despite trembling and staggering, I desperately dragged myself towards the law office. Fortunately, it was already open. Ethan must be there by now. I thought, that woman, she'll see what it means to mess with a lawyer's wife. With my husband's power, I'll make sure that woman gets what she deserves. If it's true that she and Ethan were in love, I'll confront Ethan looking like this. With that thought, I pushed myself to keep going. Finally, I stepped into the office. The lawyer who greeted me was shocked at the sight. No wonder, I was covered in blood. Call lawyer number 3189, my husband. I relayed the number Ethan had given me. You might want to call an ambulance. Just do it. Lawyer number 3189. I snapped, out of patience. The lawyer, looking confused, said, "There's no such registered lawyer." What, really? That couldn't be. Ethan definitely works at this law office. I've seen him going to work here. Yes. Besides, lawyer registration numbers now have 5 digits, not 4. Only lawyers registered over 50 years ago have a 4-digit registration number. That would mean they're quite elderly. Of course, Ethan isn't that old. He's still in his 30s. Even those registered over 50 years ago wouldn't have that number. The smallest number from the first training session in 1947 is 5251. No. I'm sure, that's what my husband told me. That can't be. Suddenly, my vision swayed and I collapsed again. I couldn't believe any of it. Was Ethan not really a lawyer? That can't be. My in-laws were proud of their lawyer son. I've seen his lawyer badge. He seemed to know quite a bit about the law. Maybe Ethan had mistakenly told me his lawyer number. Could that be? He had repeated 3189 so many times. With my head bleeding from the beating, coherent thought was impossible. My vision blurred. Are you all right? I'm calling an ambulance right now. Hello. I heard the lawyer calling for help as my consciousness drifted away. My name is Aaron Powell. My husband, Ethan Powell, is a lawyer. At least, that's what he has claimed since we met. We met on a dating app and quickly progressed to marriage. My friends envy me for having a lawyer husband, but I think it's awful. I'm a lawyer, you know. Are you going against me? He would say this arrogantly whenever he disliked something. He used to be so kind before we got married. He would often talk at length about how hard he worked to become the lawyer his parents wanted. But being a lawyer means you're making good money, right? People would say. But until recently, Ethan wasn't earning much. His income was almost like a janitor's. Apparently, he didn't have many clients. Being a lawyer wasn't as great as it seemed. Our marital relationship was not good, dominated by his arrogance. I was already regretting marrying Ethan. One day, Ethan started using social media as a handsome lawyer. He was quite good-looking. With his sharp rhetoric, he discussed legal issues, gender politics, and political correctness debates, quickly gaining followers. Though it seemed he was only echoing the majority opinion online, it appeared to be effective. Thanks to social media, Ethan's client base seemed to increase. His income improved. As work went well and his income increased, Ethan became kinder to me. And then, this happened. Now, I'm hospitalized and lying in a hospital bed. Of course, I got a medical report. It seems Ethan was informed. He messaged me saying, I heard you were suddenly attacked by a woman on the street at night. Tough break. I reported it to the police, and I felt relieved. Yet, Ethan hasn't visited me even once. Not a single message showing concern. Even when I send him messages on Messenger, I only get stickers or he leaves me on read. It's shocking, even if our marriage is strained. I thought, is he having a good time with that mistress right now? Lying alone in bed, I can't help but think about it. I want to believe that Ethan is worried about me. The one who truly loves Ethan is me. Ethan belongs to me. From that phrase, I think that woman must have been Ethan's mistress. I had been suspecting Ethan of cheating due to his recent strange behavior. It seems I was right about Ethan. I finally came home from the hospital and was able to face Ethan. Although the hospital advised me to stay longer, I had things I needed to verify and couldn't stand waiting any longer. Why didn't you visit me even once? You didn't even send me a message to check if I was okay. I was suddenly attacked on the street. As I confronted him, Ethan just gave a wry smile and said, Sorry. I was busy with work. You know, being a lawyer is a hectic job. Are you angry? Well, I'll buy you a cake to celebrate your discharge then. He tried to lighten the mood without showing any real concern. Even though I was still bandaged up. He didn't show any anger towards the person who attacked me either. Hey, aren't you angry at the person who did this to me? Of course I'm angry. But you weren't seriously harmed, so isn't that good enough? It was dangerous. Can't you use your lawyer's power to punish the perpetrator? What do you think a lawyer is? I can't just dish out punishments like in some satisfying drama. Leave it to the police. Maybe, but don't you care about me? I do care. But worrying won't heal your injuries. I wanted to ask Ethan about not being registered at the law office and his non-existent lawyer number, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Determined to uncover the truth, I went to the law firm where Ethan claimed to work. The first person to greet me was the lawyer who had called the ambulance for me. How are your injuries? While my husband hadn't shown any concern, this person did. Yes, thank you, I'm getting better. I'm glad to hear that. I was worried. No, I should apologize for the trouble last time. Really, thank you so much. How can I ever repay you? Here, this is a small gift. I hope you like it. Thank you, I'm really grateful. I apologize for the late introduction. My name is Matt Owen. Lawyer Owen said as he handed me his business card. His cleanliness and polite demeanor gave me a good impression. Thank you. My name is Aaron Powell. To get to the point, is my husband, Ethan Powell, really not a lawyer here? I heard he worked here. He even has a social media presence. Ethan Powell. Lawyer Owen, with a puzzled look, repeated the name I mentioned. And then turned pale the moment he saw Ethan's account on my smartphone. This man. Do you know something? Excuse me. Ma'am, this person does indeed work at this law office. For a moment, I thought maybe the lawyer number was just a mistake until Lawyer Owen continued. However, he is not a lawyer. He's a janitor at this law firm. What? A janitor. But he had a lawyer badge. He might have forged it, or maybe he found a badge that another lawyer lost. It's surprisingly common for them to lose things. Or perhaps he stole it. Anyway, thank you for telling me. Speaking as a lawyer, pretending to be one is a violation of the law and a crime. So, I'm sorry, but we can't overlook this and we will have to report it. Lawyer Owen looked apologetic as he spoke. Please wait. I don't mind the report, but actually, I've hired a detective agency to investigate if he's cheating on me. I was attacked by a woman who seems to be his mistress. So could you wait until the results come in? I'll report back as soon as I get them. Lawyer Owen seemed thoughtful. Understood. I specialize in divorce law. So if it comes to that with your husband, I'd be willing to help. Thank you for everything. I thanked him deeply, and Lawyer Owen nodded in return. The detective's results came quickly. As expected, Ethan was having an affair with that woman. During my hospitalization, it seems he had even let her stay at our house. Moreover, they had conversations like, I found that woman on the street at night and beat her up with a metal bat. Now no one will interfere with me and Ethan. Hey, don't go too far. What if you get caught? Such a bad woman. And well, it's easier without the nagging ugly wife. The mistress had hurriedly left the house when I returned home sooner than expected. However, the police investigation revealed even more shocking details. Ethan was indeed a fake lawyer. And the lawyer badge he had was one he found dropped in the office. Initially, he had only pretended to be a lawyer to impress others. But eventually, Ethan started engaging in fraudulent activities. Pretending to be a lawyer, he would get people to pay him retainer fees. Starting a social media was also part of his fraud scheme, luring victims. Engaging in debates about gender issues, politics, and political correctness online was just him getting carried away by internet arguments. But it also helped him in gathering victims. The reason for the increase in Ethan's income was, needless to say, due to the money transferred for his scams. I was happily oblivious, pleased that his income had increased and that he had become kinder. The mistress was also one of the victims deceived by him, entering into the relationship to potentially benefit from his influence. And as a result, she had been financially supporting Ethan lavishly. Lawyer Owen and I reported Ethan and his mistress to the police. It turned out that Ethan's claim of having reported my assault was a lie. He knew his mistress was the assailant and lied about reporting it to protect her. Ethan was arrested for violating lawyer regulations and fraud, and his mistress for assault. The metal bat used in the attack was seized, and my blood was collected from it. Ethan ranted, "I gave you a good life with the money I made. Don't report your husband just because you're jealous he cheated. Ungrateful wife. You bring such misfortune." It was complete resentment. I did not want any part of the money he earned through fraud. And it was only a matter of time before he would have been caught anyway. Naturally, I divorced Ethan and demanded compensation for adultery and assault from both him and his mistress. During this, Lawyer Owen was a great support. Thanks to him, I was able to secure far more in damages than usual. Likely because the case involved both assault and fraud. The mistress claimed I was a victim of the fraud too. Yet, you're not only reporting me but also taking compensation. That's cruel. I've already been swindled out of a lot of money by Ethan, and now I have none. Because of this, I've even been disowned by my family. Everyone is terrible. I'm a victim here. It's the wife's fault for not stopping her husband's fraud. It's only natural I hit her. Indeed, she might have been a victim of the fraud. However, what is she talking about after having committed adultery and assault? She is clearly also an offender. I have no obligation to forgive her. Moreover, the case she asked Ethan to handle involved her stealing from an acquaintance's home, so she was fully culpable. And there was no room for sympathy. The mistress had asked Ethan to settle the case cheaply and minimize the damage. And Ethan continued the affair, using this as leverage to extort money from her. I recalled that recently. Cosmetics and jewelry had frequently gone missing from my possessions. Especially right after I was discharged from the hospital, many items were lost. According to the police, it was indeed the mistress who had stolen them. With Ethan's acquiescence. Ethan apparently didn't care about my belongings. Despite having been caught stealing once, her bad habits had not changed, including the case she had asked Ethan to handle. The mistress was also charged with theft. Naturally, I also demanded compensation for these losses. Ethan said the wife wasn't using them anymore, so he gave them to me. I'm not at fault. Even the case where she hit the wife with a metal bat. Ethan told me to do it. He said the wife was in the way. Then he persuaded me that it would work out in my favor. I'm not at fault. I was deceived by a con artist. I'm a victim. Punish that con man, not me. She's lying. I didn't know anything about her belongings being stolen. If I had known, I would have stopped it. I didn't know anything about the wife being beaten either. It was all that woman's doing. Please punish her alone. Ethan and his mistress tried to shift the blame onto each other during the police interrogation. Both were desperately trying to lighten their own sentences. Ethan's parents also visited him in detention, where a shocking truth emerged. His parents had also been deceived by Ethan's claim of being a lawyer. They had pressured him from a young age to become a lawyer. Despite his efforts and studying hard, Ethan failed the bar exam. Not wanting to disappoint his parents, he lied about passing the bar after starting work as a janitor at a law firm. Initially, he intended to make the lie true by continuing to take the bar exam. But after failing 5 times, he was barred from retaking it unless he passed a preliminary examination or completed a law school program, which he did not want to pursue. Unable to confess the truth to his parents, who praised him as the pride of the family, and having found a lawyer's badge in the office, he decided to continue the deception. Thus, I was also deceived. His knowledge of the law came from studying for the exams. Some of his stories about his struggles to become a lawyer were partly true. With his arrest and the ensuing media coverage, Ethan's life smeared with lies came to an end. His face and name were widely published, effectively ending his social standing. His parents, who once praised their son as the pride of their family, berated him during the visit, calling him the shame of the family and saying, "Your misdeeds have become such big news, we can't face anyone. We're sorry to Aaron. They even apologized to me. It's all our fault this happened. We're so sorry," they said, looking utterly exhausted. Ethan, disowned by his in-laws, sent me a letter asking for reconciliation, saying, "You're all I have left. I'll spend my life making it up to you. Please don't leave me alone. I only used her to get what I wanted, and the only person I truly love is you." I immediately tore up the letter and didn't respond. His words meant nothing. If he truly loved me, why wasn't he worried when I was hospitalized after being attacked by his mistress? Why was he laughing with her about how good it was that the nagging, ugly wife was gone? He also wrote, "Are you divorcing me because I'm not a lawyer but a janitor? How terrible. Do you choose men based on their status? What is he misunderstanding? It's not about him not being a lawyer or being a janitor. The problem is that he pretended to be a lawyer, deceived everyone, betrayed me, and committed crimes. Now, Ethan has been dismissed from his job and isn't even a janitor anymore. No woman would choose a man with a status as a criminal." And then came the trial. The attack was so severe that, had lawyer Owen not called an ambulance, it might have been fatal, which led to the charge being elevated from assault to attempted murder. The question of whether his mistress had the intent to kill was rigorously investigated, despite her desperate claims that there was no intent to kill, and she only meant to hospitalize me. Her words during the attack, "You should just disappear," indicated murderous intent, leading to a severe sentence, even for a first offense. Ethan, too, received a heavy sentence due to the egregiousness of his actions. It's almost comforting to think of them both in prison, though they're in separate facilities for men and women. Even if they were together, they would likely blame each other and split up soon. After serving their sentences, they'll be saddled with debt from the damages and compensation they must pay, especially since Ethan's fraud convictions might prevent them from borrowing money from banks, their lives will be tough. This incident caused quite a stir on social media. A self-proclaimed lawyer, who was actually a fraudster involved in an attempted murder case against his wife, had been active in political and gender debates, leading to a massive backlash when the truth came out. Ethan's name trended daily. Reflecting on everything, some people have come out saying they always thought the lawyer was too ignorant, and that they suspected him from the start. Especially those who had conflicting ideologies with Ethan, or those he had attacked, were quick to say "I told you so" and criticized his entire philosophy. Those who disliked this reaction attacked Ethan's critics, accusing them of getting carried away. Somehow, the case also evolved into a debate about gender. It turned into discussions of this is why men or women are their own worst enemies. Criticism led to more criticism, escalating into political and gender debates, making the situation increasingly heated. However, as the saying goes, a person's gossip lasts but 9 days. And soon, the uproar about Ethan began to subside. I, too, became a focal point throughout this event, and the attention wasn't always sympathetic. Fortunately, my family and coworkers were supportive, but there were those who harshly questioned, "Didn't you realize your husband wasn't really a lawyer? Were you only looking at his status? How did you not notice he was committing fraud? Were you complicit or just incompetent?" Some even accused me of being an accomplice, claiming I must have known and stayed silent. Anonymous people on internet news also freely posted their speculations. I wanted to shout, "You know nothing." Why should I, the victim, be subjected to such comments? Yet, the saying that a person's gossip lasts but 9 days holds true here too. And soon the strange looks and wild accusations around me died down. "You've been through a lot," said Lawyer Owen, who not only provided legal assistance but also supported me personally, always offering kind words. "Yes, but thanks to you, I received compensation and managed to overcome the trauma." "Thank you so much," I replied. "I'm glad." I was worried about how things would turn out. I really apologize for the trouble my husband caused. I'm also sorry for all the trouble I caused. Don't worry about it. You were the main victim, after all. Don't mind it. Thanks to you, we managed to deal with a criminal pretending to be a lawyer in our firm. If we hadn't noticed, he might have caused significant damage eventually. I'm glad it didn't come to that. If it's okay with you, could we perhaps keep in touch, not just as lawyer and client? His face was red, and I felt my cheeks warm up too. "Yes, I'd like that, Matt. If you would." And so, I began dating Lawyer Owen. Matt. Even after the professional relationship as lawyer and client ended, he remained incredibly kind. I expected some criticism from society, but it seemed the public had lost interest in the incident, and no one said much about it. However, my friends teased me about how much I must love lawyers. It wasn't about his profession, though. Sure, I fell for him through his work helping me. But more than anything, it was his character that I fell for. Still, I'm indeed relieved that Matt is a real lawyer. After all, I've had enough of fake ones.